All good. So again, everybody, hello and welcome to our little webinar, our little chat with an expert. The first in the series, I hope, in the series of Startup Harbour chats with experts. And I think I couldn't pick a better one to start off with, to be honest, because I've encountered the B2B product playbook a couple of years back when I was trying to research like the perfect template for startup discovery, like trying to figure out, what is the best step-by-step methodology of building a startup, what you should do, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the B2B, and I'm saying this with full honesty, I think the B2B product playbook by Mario, who is our guest, is probably the closest to something tangible, viable that I actually found. And of course, the playbook is available online. It's available for free. For you that are joining or seeing the webinar, there is this little banner. Just click, don't discover the B2B playbook. You can click it and you can open the playbook yourselves. And just what my recommendation is, just add it to your tab. So this will be one of the tabs that you probably will open from time to time once you add it. But yeah, if you cannot click it, here's the link, the B2B product playbook. So yeah, just like a quick introduction, me, Blazej, I am organizing Startup Harbour, a free event in Pomerania that helps to help startups grow and succeed. But I'm not the important one over here. Please allow me to introduce Dr. Mario Lenz from Berlin. Yeah, but from Berlin, if I'm not mistaken. Mario, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, taking the time to talk about your career with correlation to the B2B product playbook.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yes, I'm a Berliner. I'm actually proud of being, I was born here in Berlin. I grew up here, so it means you're a true Berliner. And
Yeah.
with that city now being super international, I sometimes say I'm one of the three still true Berliners here. I mean, well, maybe that's an exaggeration, but still. Yeah, thanks for
Well,
having me. Pleasure.
about Berlin, that's one thing that I got surprised because I was working on a ship a while back, and I didn't know that Berlin actually has a connection to the sea via all the channels that are in Germany. So that was my biggest surprise about Berlin, that you can actually come, sail there. So
Yeah,
that's all.
I live here in the southeast part and directly at Lake Müggelsee, so I could jump into the lake, and if I had enough time and whatever, I could go to either to the Baltic Sea or North Sea, depending on where I branch. Yes, I could do this because
Right.
it's actually everything is connected. It's not they are not really
It
isolated
is, yeah.
lakes. It's more like, in fact, it's one river or two or three rivers, and then they widen to become a lake, but it's all connected. Yep.
Yeah, it's a huge web of canals over in Germany, that's sure. A quick introduction, a quick small talk, but allow me to start off the conversation because we are trying to do is to do everything a little bit chronologically. So allow me to start off at the very end. So allow me to start off with what's going on, with what's going right now. And Mario, a quick question out of curiosity. Right now, after all these years of building, working with products, then starting off with code, do you see yourself more as a product person or a tech person?
Definitely product. So yes, I spent, as we will probably talk about later, I
Mm-hmm.
spent the first part of my career on the technical track as an engineer and later CTO and all of that. But for 15 years now, so 15 years ago, I decided for the product track. Just, what is it now? 2 months ago, I also took the engineering head again. So I'm now a combined CPO and CTO at Hygraph. But
Mm-hmm.
still, I mean, it's one label, but if you want to spell it, I would say the P is double in size from the T in my CPTO title in terms of, how it feels, and maybe not importance. You need all of them, but how I feel connected. Yeah.
But the beginnings in general, everything started off with writing code.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
so the first, oh, apologies, I just need to switch the slide. All right, so here it is. So it all started off with code, and well, let's not say it in the 90s. Let's say in the brink of the new millennium, and so to say, because I'm already trying to jump into the lessons, but you are not the guy that waited for a task to come in. Yeah, I think we can call it like that.
Exactly. So basically, that already brings us to our first. I mean, the title here was also kind of 7 lessons. I joined this company. It was called Empolis. You can see it here on that little picture. Actually, it soon became a Bertelsmann subsidiary, but not when I joined. And I started as a lead engineer, typical environment. Yeah, this is, I think it was a 12 or maybe 15 people company, and the engineering team was 5, maybe 6. Yeah. And then I joined them. I was kind of the lead and managing them. But what already helped me a lot, basically in my very first years, you ask about coding. Yes, I was actively coding, hacking and building complex things. In a time when there was no Wi-Fi, no mobile network and anything. So basically, when you traveled, you were offline, all of that. But even then, I already did exactly as I put it here. I did the job before I had the title. So I very often engaged and did extra tasks, went the extra mile for basically doing what typically would be the job of my boss, probably. Yeah. So that kind of activity. So essentially showing my boss that I could do their jobs, which of course makes it easier for them to promote me, because they know, okay, you know what, it's zero risk. He showed that he can do it, and he showed the initiative and the engagement. So that is
But out of curiosity, do you think like this is just like a characteristic of you as a person, this proactivity, or was like, for example, because that was the time of Empolis, yeah? So was it the organization? Was it the CEO that, someone who encouraged you who said that, listen, it's okay to be proactive, Mario, go ahead, or something like that?
Absolutely. So, I think it's both. Of course, you need to yourself be the driver. If somebody else needs to tell you what to do, then maybe you're not the right person. But of course, you need also an environment where that is possible. And actually, that was later when I was already CTO. I literally remember that statement I wanted to make. Actually, I wanted to introduce Agile back then in my organization, where we were doing very waterfallish project management before. And basically all the CEO told me is, Mario, I don't care, do whatever you want, whatever you consider right, but make sure it works. So basically, that's of course what you need, in that environment as well. So it's both sides.
Would love that kind of management style. Just listen, if it works, it's okay. Yeah, so to sum up, for example, that's probably one of the, well, in my opinion, because of course I know all the 7 lessons. So like in my book, that would be probably the most important lesson, so to say, because if you are not willing to do the job, if you're not willing to do anything extra, that basically will do nothing for your career. Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely. And of course there are limits. Yeah. When it comes to, I don't know, performance review. If you're not the official boss of somebody, then you cannot just HR wise. Yeah, you cannot have the performance review, or I don't know, salary negotiations or whatever. So there are limits to it, but still you could do a lot, and actually help your boss and in that sense.
All right. So lesson number 1, just to sum it up with a lovely sentence that you wrote yourself: do the job before you have the title. That is probably what we should think about. But as you said, the company started growing, and it was at one point it was acquired by Bertelsmann. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. And the second lesson is actually something that is very often people are overwhelmed by it. Like when they, when a big company joins a smaller one, then you've got some extra structure, you've got some layers of management, etc., etc. And you can look at it 2 ways, I suppose. So there's one way that you can look at it, oh man, this is so overwhelming, let's just hide somewhere underneath all the structures and just fit in. And then again, you can, well, probably free then, but then, there's one way to say, okay, let's try to use it to our benefit. But then again, when it comes to you leveraged it for your own growth and your own career growth. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So exactly as you mentioned. So what happened is that Empolis, actually it was slightly more complicated legal-wise, whatever, but in the end, Empolis became a Bertelsmann subsidiary. And it was more or less a parallel development that I grew up the ranks and became CTO at Empolis. That is exactly when I then realized, as you said, okay, there is a bigger structure and I'm still in charge of my little own startup and in charge for my engineering team at Empolis. But at the same time, there are these connections to Bertelsmann, to the back then Arvato board. So that's basically one of the divisions inside Bertelsmann. So all of a sudden you need to have certain touch points. You need to have reportings over there. They want to know what's going on, project status, the usual stuff, when you're in these bigger organizations.
But this is already the time. This is already the time when you became the CTO, also, yeah, after the Bertelsmann acquisition.
Actually, it was the other way around. So first of all, Bertelsmann, and then I grew up. So I was already in middle management at Empolis, and then then the Bertelsmann acquisition happened, and then I stepped up basically. But what is more maybe related to your question, I mean, the more senior you are in your startup environment, of course, the more touch points you have to that big mothership company. Yeah, honestly, if you're a developer, well, what do you have to do with Bertelsmann board or financials or CFO or whatever? But if you're a CTO, definitely you do. Yeah, so that grows a little bit.
All right, so this is a lovely setup for our next lesson. So first of all, let's to sum up this lesson: leverage structure to grow. Look at the opportunities, not the challenge, not only the challenges and the potential mishaps of the structure that you are working with. But what Mario said is a perfect entry to lesson number 3. So jumping from gut feeling to conscious leadership, because once you acquire the C-level roles, especially in bigger companies, you have a lot more answers to the why questions, and you see how many why questions actually are there. And this kind of forces this, this third lesson. So jumping from gut feeling to making conscious decisions.
Yes. So basically, when I was, before, when I was CTO, I had already these gut feelings about product and value of product. We will probably talk about these key risks later. But again, as I wrote here, basically, we're gut feelings. And then I made a very conscious decision that I said, you know what? Exactly your question in the beginning. Yes, I was CTO, but now I want to step, should I say, to the other side? I don't know what that sounds so controversial. Yeah, it's not what I mean. But it really meant, okay, I basically stepped over and I took actions to focus on product leadership only. And that is exactly, all of a sudden, it's conscious leadership. All of a sudden, you need to speak business. You need to think about the why questions, as you phrased it. So you need to respond to these. So why do we do this? What's the business model behind it? What are we doing here? So it's exactly that thing that I then did. And that's why maybe, whenever I meet product leaders, I think this makes me somewhat special, because most often product leaders grew in product. Yeah, they became a product manager, then senior product manager, maybe something like principal, whatever, then became director, head of, whatever. So they grew the ranks in product. And that was different for me. So basically, I grew up and achieved the C-level in tech, and then kind of sidestepped. So in that sense, it's a little bit different for me. But it was exactly about this consciousness. You know what? I want to be in product now. That also comes back to your initial question.
Well, I suppose that there is actually, because I never thought of it like what I'm about to say right now, but there is quite a challenge, to be honest, because, when you are an expert in code, on one hand, what I hear, like, if you have experience in code and jump into product, it's like you have a huge advantage. But then again, if you have to jump from the mindset of the code is most important to the client is most important, to the end user is most important.
Yes, so, but honestly, that's what I was already doing when I was even CTO still. Yeah, I loved it to be in touch with customers, to go to customer workshops, steering boards, these kind of activities. I loved it. So I would say maybe I was even doing product management already without being aware of it. So that's why that was more at least in hindsight, it feels like a gradual move. Maybe it wasn't so obvious back then, but in hindsight, it looks like this.
But so this is also probably the time where, because as we spoke before with Mario, the B2B Product Playbook is not something that Mario decided, okay, I will write a playbook right now. This is something that was growing throughout his career. That's also why we structured this webinar like that. And so is this the time where the first Confluence documents begin to arise? And
you had the right term, Confluence, exactly. I mean, Notion and things like that didn't exist back then. and I didn't build a website. So that actually, what happened? Okay, I find out certain things. I find highly interesting, frameworks and canvases and tools and approaches. How do I tell my team? Okay, in writing. I write it down in Confluence, and then I can share it with my team. And then, of course, later I realized, but wait, when I put it in Confluence and when I change company, it's gone. I don't have it anymore. So actually the second version was then a Notion, when Notion came up and Notion allowed public websites. And then later I had a WordPress. That was probably when you said you found the playbook a couple of years ago. That was probably the WordPress version.
Yes.
And then just recently so actually it's version number 4 already now. Where I massively extended it, and it's now real content management and a proper website.
So, yeah, we'll go to the we'll touch this a little bit later, because that's also one I saw that there's from when I first saw it, I think there was a leadership segment added, like the whole thing. But we'll get to this because right now we have a nice setup to start talking about the playbook itself, because what I like about the playbook is it starts off with something extremely important, and it starts off with stating the risks, like the value-related risk, usability-related risks, viability, and feasibility-related risks. Of course, I encourage all of you, because I don't want us to start explaining each and every chapter segment of the playbook itself, because I would encourage you to check it out and make your own thoughts and etc. About it. But what I like about the playbook is that you start off with the value related risks, and maybe I will let you do the talking on this. Why you did start with the value related risks, because I do feel it's a very important one.
Yeah, first of all, this risk, this is not my invention, to be very clear here. Even when you read Marty Kagan and basically standard product management books, all of them would mention these. Maybe they would add a few more, like ethical risks or whatever, which I would fold into this one. But anyway, but I definitely started with value, because value is the thing. If there is no value for the customer, there's no way you can fix that later. Yeah. If I don't care, if you offer me a product and I don't care and it's not useful for me, there's no added value. It's not it doesn't solve a problem that I really have. There's nothing you can do about it. You can always improve usability. You can think about different business models for viability. You can always think about new technology. Just think of AI in terms of feasibility. So these are important risks as well. But if there's no value, just stop thinking about it even. Yeah. So there's no way of. Also, that's more an external. It's the value is in the eyes of the customer.
Of the customer, exactly.
Yeah. So if they don't consider it valuable, there's nothing you can do about it. So that's why you have to solve this
spoken
first.
Like a true marketer, Mario. Value is created in the eyes of the customer. Then maybe if I touched about the marketer, maybe allow me to jump into the next part of it, because I also, as a salesperson myself, I did like it that someone. Right now I cannot say someone technical because I do know that you're the product from the product side yourself. But I did like it that someone acknowledged that this is a complicated thing, the B2B buying journey, and right now we see a rise of a product marketing manager, a role that was not visible around 5, 6 years ago. It existed, but it wasn't that visible. So my question would be around that role, the product marketing manager. How do you see the importance of this role rising in time, and how valuable it is today?
Yes, I'm a little bit surprised, because honestly, I've been working with product marketing managers at least since 2016. So really people who are very active on the marketing side, and where the play is a little bit, the product manager shapes the product and the product marketing manager tells the world, if you want to call it that way. Yeah. And ideally they collaborate a lot. I think ideally also the product manager learns a little bit of that language. So, for example, what I always encourage is even too soft. What I force my team is always to think in terms of Amazon future press releases. So whenever we start building a new big thing, I want them to write down a paragraph or two, like, what could the press release look like once we've shipped that feature? But still, as a product manager, you're not polishing language. Maybe you're not snappy enough. Maybe you're not a native speaker. That's why it's always good to have a product marketing manager as well. Also to align it, particularly when the company gets a bit bigger, so that you don't have different tones of voice and personalities and so across products. So that's why, to me, that's super important. It's just not so new or as new as you. Again, I've been working with PMM since at least 2016.
As I said, this is also, of course, only my perspective, but I kind of, also observing just LinkedIn and observing the job boards, like, I see a lot more openings for like PMM. The PMM abbreviation just appears a lot more. So, but as I said, I do realize that, it did exist a little bit earlier. And out of curiosity, I do suppose that the larger the organization, the bigger the differentiation between the two. Because, for example, I do suppose, like in a small 3 or 4 person startup, just starting out, everybody does everything. But a product marketing manager would also, this would be like someone like you, but has marketing skills, like, so I suppose. But the bigger the organization, the bigger the differentiation. Yeah.
Probably even bigger. I mean, even 20 people, I would still assume it's still one person. But when you're above 50, then probably it starts separating. It also depends a little bit. I mean, you put the B2B buying journey here on the slide, which basically explains also why I focus a lot on B2B. I'm not a B2C guy. I never worked in B2C. I always worked in B2B, and that picture very well explains it. Yeah, because hey, it's just different. There's a different. And I love that challenge of all the different influences, and it's a complicated buying journey. It's not just, a website and a button and I have my PayPal account and bam, I buy it. No, not going to happen in the B2B. And then in that environment, of course, you also need the product marketing, because all of a sudden, maybe, for example, when you go international or otherwise, you address different target groups. Maybe the PMM needs to shape the language differently. Yeah, maybe they explain it differently in a different geography or for a different target audience and all of that. And that would not be the product manager anymore. So then,
scaling is a topic, to completely separate even from it, because I do suppose that sometimes even there's going to a different market, you just have to have another PMM that understands the given market. So yeah, B2B is definitely complex, and I love because you also mentioned, the types of buyers, and you also acknowledge the correlation that not each buyer is an end user in your playbook. So so if anybody listening is also curious how to structure it on your end, definitely check out the playbook, because there is a explanation to all of it. And talking about B2B, because B2B is like kind of our, coming from Poland, is kind of our hobbies, our national sport when it comes to startups. It's like 40% of the startups on our scene are B2B oriented. All the VCs, every VC wants B2B, and I understand B2B, I only do B2B, etc.
Okay.
And I get it. Yeah, I get it. Okay, we have to, if this is our special, if this is our area of expertise, why not? It is a big sector. Why not? We can probably have it. But the problem is that each and every one, especially the tech founders, the founders that came from software development, always think that I will build a great product. I will never have to talk to the customer. Everything could be done as product-led growth. And I get it. This is great. You can have some tips and tricks. And you also mentioned the product-led growth in your playbook, but I'm curious. I'm sure that both of us know that it's not always the case. Product-led growth is not always possible.
Yeah.
And I was curious if you have something like a rule of thumb or some indicators when product-led growth is actually a strategy that you can follow.
Okay, let me flip it the other way around. So what I could say, there are, and I would say 4 or maybe 5 things to watch out for. So signals that adopting a PLG only, product-led growth only strategy will be very difficult. So first one is, Assume you're rebuilding a product in a completely new category. So you're in the blue ocean. You need to educate your users, yeah? And they wouldn't even understand what it is before you educate them. Imagine, Zapier in the very early days. I mean, nobody would understand, what do I do with a tool like Zapier and how would I use this, yeah? The second one is when the domain itself is very complex in itself. So not the product, not the whatever you're delivering, but the domain itself. And probably we will later talk about my step at Quentic when it comes to EHS and ESG and carbon reporting and all these frameworks. And you need to read, thousands of pages to even understand the domain. I mean, sorry, this is not PLG. Yeah, nobody will do this. The third one is when most buying decisions are, you said user is not a buyer, when most buying decisions are really in a top-down matter. So think about HR software. I mean, sorry, nobody deploys PLG in HR, where you might even need, the workers' council approval and all of that. So no way. The fourth one is for PLG users, so real users who work with the system daily, they need to be intrinsically motivated to try something, because otherwise, why would they do PLG? And now imagine you're a roofer or you're a construction worker or you're a truck driver and you want some piece of software for that thing. I mean, you wouldn't do that, yeah, honestly. When you've been working at a construction site all day and you get home in the evening, well, you probably get a beer and watch some soccer and say, leave me alone. Yeah, you would not open the internet and Google some cool tech around the block. And the last one to me is you need for PLG a business model or a model where initial usage can go viral. So you get this growth loop. Yeah, I start doing it. I invite you, Blazej. You invite another person, and it grows. So it needs to be of that nature. And some domains are not in that. If I do something for me, myself, and I don't care about anybody else, again, it's not viral. So
huge usability is probably a good indicator that you can start with PLG, yeah?
Yes. And that's why, I mean, of course, you can still use elements of PLG, like, show, don't tell, or think about a good, user onboarding, all of that, but not, follow a pure PLG motion in the sense of onboarding, retaining, acquiring users only through the product. I mean, the slang is the product sells itself. Hey, that brings us basically back to the product marketing manager. Yeah, but only if marketing did a good job and you're known and everybody knows you. Yeah, how else do they find you? So it doesn't really sell itself.
Yeah, the product sells itself is probably the best way to get out of a VC door very quickly. So that's one way to close the door behind a VC.
Okay.
But I have to ask, because as I mentioned before, coming from sales, and I usually had, been doing like high lifetime value sales. And I was curious if there is if you saw that there is a correlation that above some certain customer lifetime value, you just have to have this human factor. And this is my curiosity. If there is if you notice something like that I don't know, if a software costs more than 4 digits or 5 digits a month, then no, you need a representative.
Very simple, because the IC people would not have the budget. Yeah, I mean, sorry, if you're a developer or you're a whatever, maybe even an IC marketeer, you would not have a credit card to sign something that is, I don't know, 100K a year. I mean, no way. It needs approval. It needs budgeting. It needs CFO approval. All of that, and that brings us to this top-down decision. There are still ways of dealing with that. And actually, back in the days, I remember that was 20 years ago, Splunk, I even don't know whether they're still around. They did a great job in that. So that the term PLG didn't even exist. Basically, Splunk is about IT analytics. So watch all your, probably is New Relic today or something like that. Yeah, you watch all your log files and see how your IT systems work. And basically, they allowed you to download the thing, to play with it, to implement a full project until up to a certain limit. So basically, if you're an IT person, you could build it, you could build the entire dashboard, you could not nearly go live, and then you could go to your boss and say, you know what, The only thing we need to put the thing live is your credit card. It's already there. It's already working. And that was a very nice move. Yeah, again, PLG didn't exist back then, but actually it was product-led growth. But again, you had, the other factor. So you had people intrinsically motivated. They were looking for a problem for their solution. So that's why they were open to that.
All right. So, well, product-led growth is absolutely great. But, talking about the tips, so just to come back to them, you should not look at product-led growth when, number one, we are dealing with new technology. I will do this simply. The domain is very specialized.
Complex to understand, yeah.
Top-down buying decisions.
Yeah.
And the fourth one, I missed.
When the actual users don't have an intrinsic motivation, so they don't want to try themselves, yeah. If somebody else has to force you, then
all right,
somebody else will also make the decision. Yeah.
Talking about forcing someone, I think it's a good time to go to our next lesson, because this is something that I actually misunderstood when I first saw the term Hippo CEO. So yeah, maybe I will leave the floor to you, Mario, and if you could, because I didn't know, maybe our listeners do, but if you could explain what a Hippo style CEO is.
Yeah. So Hippo stands for, it's a very well-known term, at least in the product management community. It stands for highest income paid person's opinion. So basically means, wait a sec, I need to calm down something here. Basically means usually it will be the CEO. Who else? He is probably the highest ranking person. Only his or her opinion counts. Whatever data you bring, whatever research you bring, it's their opinion, and no matter what you say, they will always ignore it. To be clear, if you're a very early company, founder mode, founder startup, that's the right way to go. If you're a 5-person company, you don't have your product market fit yet. It's the job of the founders to get across that chasm, to find product market fit. But when you're at a later stage, because I'm also the scale up guy, then obviously, the CEO hires somebody like me or a full product team to do the work. And if they don't trust us, and if they question every decision, every data, every research result we come up with, then it's kind of, questionable. And my learning here at MarketLogic, I had to deal with such a CEO, was essentially I tried to change his mind and to educate him. And hey, we have this data, and this is what customers told us, and all that. He was always pushing back. Yeah, but I didn't like the research. Yeah, I didn't like. I think you asked the wrong question. What I then did, actually, I stepped aside and I basically brought customers in and say, hey, maybe if you don't listen to me, you listen to your customer. So I kind of used, for example, I installed customer advisory boards where we then had a group of customers telling us their opinion. And honestly, when there are 5 high-paying customers in the room and all of us say, you have to go left, the CEO can't say we will go right. Then it's, it's too obvious. So basically, I still facilitated that discussion, but I let customers bring it over and actually educate him.
Because the lesson that was first formulated is it's easier to fix the strategy, not the people. And I do apologize because I will use a cliche right now. Is it a little bit like you cannot judge a monkey cannot judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree? And isn't this a little bit like that? That if you have a lot of fishes in your team, you cannot tell them the strategy right now is to go and climb a tree.
I'm a bit struggling with that analogy because here in that example, the fish wants to climb a tree. Yeah, he cannot. He wants to. Yeah, that's kind of. It's more like when it comes to strategy is, yes, of course, as the product leader over there, I was in charge of strategy. But how can I run strategy and own strategy when the Hippo CEO always steps in and kind of overrules my decision, and I cannot change him personally? Yeah, I cannot tune his brain or whatever, take a screwdriver and rewire his brain. So I need different ways of fixing the strategy, and I did that, as I said, by basically leveraging customer feedback.
Yeah, but I do suppose that the MarketLogic experience wasn't a long one.
Yeah.
All right, but talking about strategy, this brings me to one of because this is your authorial system. Yeah, this is something that you ideated, and this is something that I absolutely love. The VMS, I already called it for you, the VMS house, Vision, Mission, Strategy house. And I love the way it is structured. I love the way where the vision is at the very bottom of everything, of the entire system, and the values and principles acting as walls. I mean, this is a lovely metaphor.
Yeah.
So again, in your book, you also mentioned that there is a lot of misunderstandings, but especially between vision and mission. So if I could just again ask you to explain how you see the differences between vision and mission and the VMS house.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I mean, obviously, I'm not the first one to build such a diagram chart whatsoever. I mean, there is Ravi Mehta product strategy stack. There is also a thing that I like a lot, that is the decision stack by Martin Ericsson. However, with most elements, or with most, particularly the visualizations that I'm struggling with, is they are upside down. So like the vision is on top and the roadmap comes at the bottom. And I always, to me, it's like a house. I mean, if your vision as a foundation, if that is not there, forget everything else. I mean, it will just fall apart. Yeah, it will just not be stable. So that's why it was really in this, how I can build it one layer by another. And when it goes top down, then I just visually, I don't get that picture. Yeah, you don't build from top to bottom, you build bottom up. And exactly, so basically how I would see it, vision, mission, that's always a language issue. I basically called it the vision here in my world. It's more about the worldview. How do we see, will the world look like when we've succeeded? It's not about us. Maybe we contribute to it, but how will the world look like? Yeah, there are these famous things like we envision, you see already, vision, yeah, we envision a world without poverty. Okay, that's a very strong vision, very clear. Nobody is starving, nobody is poor, all of it. No idea how we get there, but it's a very clear vision. So that is how I would put vision. And then the mission is exactly how, in my view, it's the product, because I was a product leader. You could also say how the company contributes to that. Yeah, in order to fight poverty, we do, I don't know, we build an NGO that feeds the world or whatever. Yeah, whatever is our way of helping that vision to become reality.
Was the IKEA example in your playbook?
Yeah.
So it was something like that. Our vision. I may I may not remember it correctly, but like the vision was to make lives of our customers happier, or something like that, or make life happier, something like that. And the mission, we will do it by providing affordable furniture, something like that. Yeah,
exactly. So from the vision, and IKEA is really a great example. From the vision, you would have a hard time understanding, wait, this is IKEA? I mean, if you just read it, probably not. When you read, we built affordable furniture, okay, you know it. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. But it still leaves the room open, because maybe when they have achieved that mission, maybe there's another thing. So maybe, I don't know, I cannot think about IKEA, but maybe they built some more. I mean, take Google maybe as a good example. Yeah, we organize the world's or make information accessible for everyone. Okay, and we start by doing search, and then we add maps, and then we add Android, and then we add you get all the bits and pieces of how they fold together to support the vision. But always different. Also, usually would say vision is more like lifetime, and mission maybe is like, depending on domain and industry, maybe 5 years, 10 years, whatever. So it has a shorter time horizon. And then everything else builds on top. So of course, then you derive the strategy. What does it mean for us? How can we achieve that mission? What exactly do we focus on? What do we ignore? What do we scope out? How do we differentiate? And what I put, you said it already, is to the side is exactly these principles and values. Yeah, because you need product principles. What is key? Like, I don't know who of you knows Linear, for example, as a competitor to Jira. We are using Linear. And they basically say, our software needs to be top-notch UI, UX. It needs to be perfect. It needs to be delightful, my boss would say. I mean, Jira is not delightful, not at all. That's their principle. Yeah, everything needs to be super craftsman's work. And values like, I mean, how do we operate? How do we act as a team? Are we fast? Move move fast and break things would be one value. Another one could be more like, hey, stable, and depends on the industry.
And it's safe to say that you stand by your words and you stand by your system, because jump into the next slide. One of the tools that you present is a product vision board by Roman Pichler. And I wanted to ask you about the product vision board, because one thing that the playbook does not have is a value proposition canvas, which we in Poland absolutely love. Is like we say that this is the first thing that we have to do. Or did I miss it?
It should be in my reading, and it should be, there's not just a playbook. There's also the what did I call it, resources page, where I have all these tools in place.
Actually, that's one thing that I forgot to mention, because guys, it's not that as Mario mentioned before, everything that you find in the B2B product playbook stands on the shoulders of giants, so to say it metaphorically. When you enter the website, you will see all the reading materials, or all the sources of the information that you hear. You have reference to the people that ideated some of them, like Roman Pichler, like Marty Kagan, like there's the reference to Lenny's newsletter as well, for example. So all the biggest product names, so to say, in software, and it's also accessible on the website. But the product vision board, if we start off with the vision, if you could walk us through, because this is, if we count the vision as the foundation, this is an extremely important exercise to make.
Yeah, it is. So really, I mean, you can read it here already from even when it's probably hard to read the final text. Yeah, leave it as is. Mm-hmm. From the 5 sections that we see here. So yes, we formulate a vision, again, something like make life affordable for everybody, or a world without poverty, whatever. And then you would separate, okay, for whom do we do that? Okay, life without poverty would be all humankind. Maybe your vision is a little bit smaller, and you have a dedicated, particularly when you talk B2B, you have a specific target group. Maybe it's, I don't know, SMB logistics companies or whatever. What kind of sizing, demographics, firmographics, what are they doing? And then usually you have these specific needs for that target group, the needs that you address. There will be more, but which are the needs that you really address? And then coming to the product, how do you serve these needs, and what are the business goals? Mm-hmm. Actually, to be very honest, because you mentioned value proposition canvas, there are a lot of these product vision canvases, product vision boards, product vision, mm-hmm. you name it, visualizations. I'm also a big fan of the value proposition canvas by Osterwalder, the thing that I just mm-hmm. showed here. That book, I highly recommend it. It's also mm-hmm. fun to read, by the way. I couldn't put it away even for a couple of days. And the reason why I suggested, I think this document, or the value proposition canvas, is more holistic in that it actually starts at the vision, but then it's a material, or it's an artifact that helps you to run through the entire process. So they even explain how you can test an MVP with just a value proposition canvas, value proposition design, essentially, value mm-hmm. proposition canvas. Because it also starts with a vision as we see it here, but then it gets into jobs, and then it gets to pains and gains, and then how the product serves these pains and gains. So it's really, it's not a thing that is relevant only for one phase, but you start mm-hmm. and then you keep using it. That's what I find a very mm-hmm. strong thing about the value proposition canvas.
Well, in general, I didn't want to interrupt you, but as you mentioned, the books in general, it is a rabbit hole. Once you start, there's so many good books on product discovery, on, as you said, like the Lean Product Playbook, probably one of my most favorite ones. I think you also reference it somewhere in the reading materials. Yeah. So it is. So for anybody trying to explore the product section, the product sector, the product segment, be careful, because it can end up being a rabbit hole. There's so much materials to read. But what I like about your playbook especially is the fact that you are not afraid to add your stuff. Yeah. It's like you do not take all of the known frameworks that we have, and you adapt them to I don't want to say to your liking, but to what you deem is relevant. And I feel that the double diamond process, which some of us, some of our listeners, I suppose, know and work with it and understand it as especially the ones working as engineers. But you didn't stop there. You allowed yourself to add a little bit to the double diamond.
Yeah. So the double diamond, so that's the blue and greenish part that we see here, is essentially by the British Design Council. That should be a very well-known, at least if you're in product and design, you should know it.
Mm-hmm.
But the weakness, I believe, is it's not really talking delivery. So it's a design thing. Okay, but then you have designed it, you have designed your solution, you've come to how should the solution look like. Now, how do you build it and how do you ship it and how do you deploy it and all of that? That's not covered. So that's why already one extension, by the way, is called Triple Diamond. That's by Zendesk. Where they exactly add that phase. I didn't visualize it here as a diamond, but it's already adding this thing as a third one. And then, but even with triple diamond, to me the question is, okay, now we've built it, we shipped it, but that's not the end of the story. So even after we shipped it, we still need to think about distribution. How do I support adoption by users? Yeah, when I ship the new feature, how do I observe metrics? How do I monitor usage? Maybe I find some glitches and issues that I need to fix. And so product-wise, as well as, and that's what I call retrospective here, particularly when you're a leader, how do we keep improving as an organization? Yeah, okay, we shipped the product, but what did we learn as a team, as an organization? How can we improve? How can we get better? What are the key things that maybe we made some mistakes that we want to avoid in the future? So it's a lot about that. So that's why, to me, it's really this extended scope. And of course, it looks very linear here. Yeah, you enter on the left and you get to the right in one straight line. Of course not. Of course, you will go back and forth and have, new learnings that push you back. So that's the complicated stuff. But again, that's why this extension of the double diamond, because just the blue and green isn't sufficient.
All right, because we've been talking about the process right now, the last 3 slides, a lot of tools, a lot of strategy, a lot of process, but in the end, it's not always, the end goal. Like it's okay. There's still something a little bit more important than the process, as you mentioned in one of the next lessons. Before we jump to it, I would just like to encourage everybody listening. If you have any questions, start thinking of those questions and type them in, because after we finish, of course, just a reminder, there will be a Q&A, and I see your questions in the chat. So if anybody has a question, or feel free, yeah, even if you have to jump out of the call, whatever, we will have a recording, ask the questions, and we will come back to them and send you the recording. So, but again, I apologize, I just had to wanted to mention that. Coming back, trust before process.
Yeah. So basically, my situation at Quentic was and I joined them in 2019, was that there was no product management in place at all. I mean, it was already kind of post-Series B company, okay-ish, successful in the German market, and the goal, of course, after Series B was to scale up and to get international and even grow further. So I had to build exactly that entire product function: product managers, researchers, designers, everything. And that was exactly when I had this kind of trust. So I had to, on the one hand, I had to trust I hired the team, I grew the team, but I had to trust them. They know what they're doing. And honestly, some of them were experts in the field. I mean, as you can see here, maybe from the picture, Quentic was all about occupational safety. So if you're working in a hazardous environment, like on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean, it's dangerous. So what do you need to know? How do you need to behave? How do you need to protect yourself from these dangerous situations? And there were some people in the team who just, they had been on an oil rig for ages. I mean, they knew much better than I knew. So this kind of trust. And of course, I tried to bring in some processes, but more like guidance. And hey, this is a way of doing it more easily, or, of aligning with others and not inventing the wheel every time, but still it's more about trust. And it's also about diversity. And I think honestly, if I look at myself, I think I'm fairly proud of the achievement over there. So basically, when I left, there were around 20 people in that product team. and they're very diverse, and not just diverse in terms of gender or nationality or culture, but for example, also, again, there were some experts who were from that field and didn't know about product management. And there were others who did B2B product management, but didn't know about the domain. So, putting that piece of the puzzle or the puzzles together so that you really have a team who can also support each other. And, one can tell them, hey, that's the way of how you do product management. The other would say, hey, when you touch safety, this is what you have to watch out for. So that's basically a big learning for me where it's not about sorry.
Apologies, because I wanted to jump about the touch upon the diversity aspect a little bit later, but I think this is a good setup to do it. Right, I think this is a good setup to do it right now, because we also have another lesson to select your CEO wisely. And I jumped to this slide because there is, I don't remember if it was Bezos or who said it first or who made it popular, that that he does not or she does not hire expensive and expensive experts to the team to let them know, to tell them what to do. That's one thing. But the other thing is also that you need this diversity, because if you will have a team of 20 Mario Lenzes, you will have a totally biased team that only sees one direction, that and a very narrow scope. I think this is the most important part about diversity in a team.
Yes. So diversity brings a lot of, it's just a richer experience. You have more opinions. You just build better solutions in the end. That's also proven. That's science behind it. Yeah, it's data where you can select it. And you're exactly as you're saying. Here that was actually where I am right now at Hygraph. So again, I am in there, and honestly, I am sometimes I say I'm the dinosaur in that team, yeah. Because I am that special guy who has that decent product experience, who's also by far the oldest in the team, who also has certain level of experience where I can say, I'm self-confident enough that I know what I know, and I know what I can do, so I can tell you what I think is right. Yeah. In the end, it's still the CEO. He's the boss. If he makes a different decision, fine. But still, I will always, raise my voice and mention my concerns and bring in my ideas. And in that sense, that's also my statement here. If you reach that, but probably for that, it's a little bit easier if you're already progressed in your career, that you can really be a little bit more selective about your CEO, about your positions. Yeah, you can actually.
But you yourself, you are also in a leadership role, whether we like it or not. You have a team working with you, and because you also in the playbook you also mentioned the PM Daisy. But actually, I first found it via the playbook. I didn't know it existed before, and I'm curious because we're again talking about diversity right now. Diversity is a topic of gender, of religion, etc. But it's not only the case. It's also diversity in a skill set, diversity in I don't want to say intellect, but because it's not if someone is smart or not. There are different kinds of smart as well. And I'm curious about you as a leader, because I'm sure you have all those challenges as well. That there are people that are great team members, but maybe not necessarily like a character alignment, but that this is a valuable asset to the team. And I'm curious, you as a leader, how do you challenge those situations that maybe even in terms of character you do not align, but you see the extreme value of this person as a team member? Is that challenging for you, or maybe I'm just overblowing stuff?
No, absolutely right. And actually, let me separate two things here. First of all, this is still a business. It's a company. Whoever says company is your family, sorry, it is not. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's not. We need to work together, of course, on a polite and professional level. If we shout at each other and fight each other and kind of play martial arts every day, then it gets difficult. But other than that, it's a professional collaboration, and we should work on that. Honestly, personally, sometimes I know that I sometimes, because of we had the Berlin aspect in the beginning, And we have a saying that is Berliner Schnauze, so basically a Berlin mouth. Basically said, you are very straight, you're very direct, you're not in a diplomatic core. When you say something, you just say it. Yeah? When there is bullshit on the table, you call it bullshit and not something that you beat around the bush. And when you have somebody from a different culture, then of course they might be offended or whatever. So you need to be a little bit more careful, but still, it's about a professional way of working.
I've encountered the Berliner Schnauze in my life with a client already once.
Okay.
I had to burn a fire that started off with a caps lock. It's like, one of the German clients just started writing with a caps lock, etc., and in a language that was very straightforward. And I get it. Okay, just giving information back and forth. Yeah, so regular information. And a person on our team saw this caps lock and saw this like emotionless message and thought, why is he screaming at me, stuff like that. So and it turned out completely different. Then we met on a call. We had to meet on a call and see, no, I just wanted to write you a message. What do you mean? This is the cultural things are very strange.
That's great. That could be me, actually. I was also in my previous job, and even when I started Hygraph, I was also doing a lot of caps lock writing, but mostly as a way to very easily if I do something in Slack, I know I can also do bold or whatever, but it's just easier to do it in uppercase letters, yeah. And then the team, actually, I also have a routine where basically, I have kind of a reverse performance review. So basically, I sit in the middle and the team gives feedback to me. And they could also do it anonymously, or they could tell me. And then, for example, that was one thing that I learned. Hey, Mario, you're shouting at us when you probably don't mean. Okay, so I stopped doing that, yeah, for example. And that's a thing where obviously, I also need to learn and I need to adjust. There's one thing on that PM Daisy that I would like to emphasize. That's the second aspect that you mentioned in terms of diversity. What I see a lot is that depending on where, particularly a product manager, probably in other arenas as well, where they come from, they have different skills. If somebody from the design craft moves over to product management and becomes a product manager, guess what they will do? They will probably draw a Figma chart, or, if they have an idea, because they are thinking visually. Yeah, they are thinking in terms of designs and boxes and screens and everything. Not me. Honestly, sometimes I exaggerate. I would even say I'm colorblind. I don't even notice differences on that level. I'm a writing guy. Yeah? Writing is thinking for me, because when I write, I need to be very explicit. So I write, and you need to adjust these personalities. Yeah, there might be other people who still work differently. So that's the PM Daisy here. Even though, this is more about PM Daisy. To me, it's more like me, myself, and I. Who am I as a product manager? What archetype of product manager am I, and how strong am I? So it's more like about my personal career. I adopted a similar method, also kind of radar plot, how I actually do performance reviews in a very, very structured manner with my team. That's also something that's in more detail described in my playbook, but it results in a similar visual way of, showing weaknesses and strengths, so that you can easily identify, hey, Blazej, you know what? You're a product manager right now. You want to become a senior product manager, but you know what? Here's your gap. You need to focus on, stakeholder management. So what do we do? And next time we talk, we see whether you got stronger, and then we can talk about a promotion. So,
exactly. That's exactly something that I saw, because some people, like, especially in project, not product managers in my case, but project managers, when I was working in software houses, it's like there were some of the project managers were, had the technological background and were extremely good at writing tasks, etc., and managing the team. Others were extremely good at managing the clients. And one of the roles of the then CEO was to challenge and try to fit the client to the best project manager. So that is a challenging one. But I do believe that some characteristics are just unchangeable, and you just have to discover them.
Sure. Yeah. Some are also personality wise, and there are certain things. Yeah.
All right, but Mario, then, but we touched upon this aspect the last lesson. The learning never stops, because we even talked about still growing and still learning new stuff even now. Out of curiosity, outside, is there, like, because it took your curiosity to discover the product, the product space? Like, is there something that you're trying to discover in terms of building software right now? Is there something besides AI? Because I do suppose AI is there somewhere.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm using AI a lot, particularly, on weekends and so on, using AI a lot to build something, trying to build something more like, again, it's not that I want to build a business around it, but more like I have an idea, and the way of learning tools is, I have an idea about a project, so I implement this project by way of a technology so that I can learn the technology. So yes, there is one. And actually one thing is basically the thing that maybe if I just phrase the problem, to me, the problem statement would be, why do I need to tell Claude what ChatGPT already knows about me? I find that confusing because I'm playing with all these Claude and ChatGPT and Perplexity and Cursor and Lovable. So why couldn't there be some shared memory across all of them? That's a problem that I'm tackling right now.
Well, that's
as a person.
well, of course, there's money involved, I'm sure.
Not yet, but right now it's more like a hobby project.
Yeah, but okay, I don't want to steer the conversation there, because you would probably eat me alive when it comes to talking about AI. But actually, if there would be like this one central database that knows everything about everyone, I would be scared of it.
Okay.
But again, let's not talk about this, because, as I said, you will eat me. And still, we are an hour in, and I still got two questions, two slides, and two questions that I have prepared from before. Tips for people looking to explore the product path. Yeah. Because there's a few engineers watching, and a few engineers that were asking for this for the recording. And yeah, I know it's a cliche again, but if I could ask, is there's like top 2, top 1, top 3 tips that you could give crossing the path on your own?
Yeah. So basically, I would start with stay curious and fall in love with the problem. Remember our value risk that we saw earlier. I mean, it's all about the problem. Fall in love with the problem. The second one, which is more, in today's day, I would say prototype over PowerPoint, specifically with Gen AI. That touches the thing we just had with AI and cruising. I mean, honestly, you can build, not production-ready software, but you can build prototypes in a couple of hours with prompts. So use the technology, and of course, that speaks way louder and way better to customers and touching and showing how it could feel and look like. And then the third one, and then I think, Blazej, if I understood properly, that your audience is specifically in the B2B space. Yeah, I would say go niche. Because, back in the days when everybody, when you needed a CRM, well, there were a few big players and you need to select them, because customizing and building it for a niche area, for a niche market segment is just way too expensive. But now with Gen AI, that becomes totally feasible. So why not? With Gen AI Gen Z decision makers, you can make it cooler, you can make it niche for that specific area. So maybe there is a CRM for, I don't know, drugstores in Poland, or whatever. The kind of, but it's good enough to start a business with. Yeah.
So you think so? Okay, this is just again my assumption. So you think that maybe software is going a little bit more decentralized right now? This will be the trend. Like there will be more niche, smaller service providers, and more of them. So smaller revenues, not that big, like Google, etc., not that big of a scale, but more of them.
Or maybe even internal. Again, if I'm a medium-sized company, why do I need to buy a CRM from this big vendor? Why do I need to buy a Salesforce for a fortune when all I need is this tiny little bit, and I can build it myself, or my team can build it myself, or some, not even running a business around it, but just for my own usage, essentially. So build my own. We see that already. We do that. For example, when it comes to lead analysis, lead generation, all of that, we're building our own tool chain. We don't need these external tools anymore. So yes, that's what I see, definitely. And for a founder, could of course be a starting point to, hey, I built this for this one customer, and then I extend it for another, and then it can grow from there. So these niche solutions all of a sudden become feasible and viable. Before you couldn't build it, when you need hundreds of engineers to build even a basic CRM.
Yeah, that's why I'm happy because yeah, as you said, it's really easy to build. It's, well, not really easy. It's much easier to build a software tool right now. Yeah, with the use of AI, with the use of no code, low code. But I'm very happy that you mentioned the fall in love with the product as number one.
Problem.
Because very often right now, I listen. Oh, I've built this in a weekend using ChatGPT. I've built this over the weekend using ChatGPT. And very often, but this is me again. You might not agree, but I see. And so what? So what? Because who cares? Like, okay, I'm happy that you build it, but does it really solve a problem for somebody? That's a different state. That's a different side when you're talking about building internally, because internally you are immersed in the problem 8 hours a day or more hours a day, each and every day, and understand it perfectly. Then yeah, internally you have all the capacity to solve it. But yeah, how many? Yeah, okay, there were tools built just to hide in the closet before AI. It's just right now you just build them faster.
Yeah, that will probably still be the case. Yeah, I mean, that's why I said fall in love with the problem first. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm super happy that this actually came, because I see this as an advisor myself. I see this as a huge problem. People skipping research altogether, then having problems with go to market because they do not have a waiting list or a test base and anything like that. It's a huge problem right now. But yeah, let's end on a happy note, because Mario's experiences in larger organizations, in scale ups, and the B2B playbook is, as Mario mentions also at the beginning, is more with a scale up perspective. But okay, I don't want to jump to the question. I will say okay, because the question is one of the questions from the audience will come next. B2B product playbook, but for early stage founders. What would you add? What would you delete from the existing playbook? I'm not expecting like one-on-one perfect answer right now, because I surprised you with this one. But if there is something that maybe you've asked yourself this question before, if I would do it for a early stage founder, how would I do it?
Yeah, take it with grain of salt. Yeah, I always worked in scale up, so that's why I was never even, well, actually I was a part, but that was only a sidekick in a kind of leisure time project where we started something. One thing that is definitely different, and we talked about that when I mentioned the hippo style, is this founder mode. I mean, if you're particularly when you are pre-product market fit, it's the job of the founders to drive the vision. It's the job of the founders to drive the roadmap and the strategy and all of that, because it's their baby, it's their company. So that definitely had to change. So ideally, you are, as a founder, you are the product leader until you have reached product market fit. That's definitely one thing that I would change. Other than that, yeah, probably also, it's less of a even less of a process, because your team will be smaller. You don't need that much process yet. It's more like everybody is doing everything, depending on what's relevant. But I mean, for example, the risks are still the same: value, problem. Everything else follows later.
How about research techniques? Do you have any favorite? Do you have any favorite ones or something like that? Like the ones that you see that provide the most one-on-one results, like.
Ideally, I mean, but of course that's always a question of whether they can do that. I mean, I love job shadowing. So actually, go to your target customer and follow them for 2 or 3 days. I remember, I started implementing that after I joined Quentic, and then COVID hit. And of course, that was the end of job shadowing, and people couldn't even meet anymore, and everything went to Zoom. I mean, that was the end. But I mean, I think that is so super valuable when you just see them struggling in their daily life and say maybe something they would not even express, because it just feels natural. Yeah, we've always done it this way. And yes, and then you look at them and say, what the heck are you doing there? So job shadowing, particularly at this early stage,
Mario, I think you just provided me with a perfect end quote for this webinar, because when we started off with do the job before you have the title, right now we can finish do the job before you build the software.
Follow the job, or do the job, right? Correct. Yeah, that's great.
All right, guys, of course, no pressure. If you don't have any questions, don't worry, because I have one question. I had two. One was already answered, but I have one question about you, Mario, because someone did the research and actually saw that you are an angel investor on LinkedIn. And a person wanted me to ask a question. Your experience comes with scale ups, your experience comes with B2B. Is this also the only rule for you to invest? Like, you do not invest in early stage, you only invest, for example, in what you know, what you have hands-on experience with. I mean, like, grow, maybe not grown as in, as in large, but already having like a MVP, something close to a product market fit, and in the B2B stage?
Yeah, but so it is B2B. Yes, I'm immediately eliminating everything B2C. It must be something where I can also contribute otherwise. I mean, I don't want to be operational. Yeah, I'm non-operative. I don't want to do the business, but it helps when there is also, hey, I know that beyond my investment, maybe I can also help the team with some product stuff, or for example, I helped another team hiring their first product leader, that where I can really contribute as such. On scale up, not so much. So yes, there should be some initial, market traction and some data about, but what do you have already? Where you mentioned the waiting list, for example, something like that. So some tension, but not scale ups. I mean, usually, honestly, when you invest in scale ups, then ticket sizes would be above my typical ticket size when you're investing in scale ups. So I would define scale up as something like, say, 8, maybe 10 million ARR revenue, and then you can, I mean, that's probably 100 million revenue valuation, and then it's too late also for an angel investor. So scale up, to me, I would define it more as post Series A, if not even post Series B. That's where I worked. But investing wise, I would do it much earlier. So even seed rounds and all of that. But I still want to see some early traction. So give me an example of customer feedback, or actually.
So you're not buying, like, I don't know if there is an expression in English, like, you're not buying a cat in a bag, basically.
Yeah.
Eine Katze in meinem Sack.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have it.
It's exactly like that in German. It's exactly like that in German.
Okay.
Yeah. Katze in Sack.
I see Vlad. Hi. I see your question. Just allow me to ask the last one from the people that asked the questions before. Sorry, I'm already eating my own tongue. The question is about the biggest issue you see with B2B software right now. I know it's a very vague question, but maybe there is something that you can state. Like, what is the biggest issue with B2B software right now?
The biggest
people building B2B software right now. What is the mistake? Let's say, or maybe I'll phrase it like that. What is the mistake that the B2B software makes that you see reoccurring?
In new software or in extending? So let me refine. So is it, you mean when you build something new, a new product?
Yeah, let's say somebody builds a new B2B product. You, as an angel investor, you with the experience in B2B, what is the mistake? Because as I said, the question was a little bit vague. I tried to make some sense out of it. But so what is the common mistake that you see teams make?
What I see is that sometimes, or often, teams don't think holistically. They don't think about go-to-market. They don't think about distribution. So, for example, just the other day, I had somebody who promised me he built a Jira killer. I said, guys, first of all, there are solutions for that already. And secondly, it's not about Jira itself. It's about the whole environment and integrations and ecosystems and all of that, and go-to-market and all of that. So, you might, and by the way, even the product itself was not convincing, but even if the product itself was better than Jira, there's still a lot of stuff missing.
Yeah.
Also, a good example that I always cite, people are always very popular and very hype on Slack, for example, but Microsoft Teams still has 5x or 6x more users simply because of distribution. It's just part of the Office suite. So every big company will have Office. So every big company will have Microsoft Teams and not go on Slack. And all of a sudden, you have to think about that as well. So that's probably think about distribution and the whole go-to-market ecosystem.
Yeah, you can easily build a better teams, definitely. You can easily build a better teams, but still you will never beat Microsoft in terms of distribution, in terms of how entangled they already are within the structures of companies, the bigger ones, etc. So yeah, absolutely agree. A question from Vlad: Does your job have corporate politics? And if so, how often do you have to get involved in it, and how well do you need to understand it?
No, it does not. I mean, particularly at Hygraph right now, we are 70 people, so far away from being a corporate. And honestly, I would grill anybody who brings in politics. I would say, guys, what are you up to? It's not our matter. That was probably more the case. We talked about Bertelsmann earlier. Yeah, there you have more politics, and then you need to find a way. Honestly, we mentioned Berliner Schnauze. I always try to avoid it, and kind of being straight and being direct and being not to beat around the bush or do some Flurfunk, we say in German. So, speaking kind of and that kind of stuff. Sometimes you have to deal with it. I mean, particularly if you're in larger organizations. If you really have a hard time, I mean, escape the corporate, I would say. If you can't stand it and if it gets too much, escape the corporate.
Well, yeah, I do suppose that there are times where the structure and the CEO just doesn't fit you. It's also you who maybe do not fit the structure, and that's okay. It's absolutely okay. Just there's no point in staying somewhere when you don't feel good, unless you're learning and getting paid quite nicely. Then maybe.
Yeah, but even then you don't want to. I mean, for example, that happened. We mentioned Quentic earlier. The safety company. We had a very successful exit, but guess what happened after the exit? The entire C-level left the company because all of a sudden it became part of a corporate structure. And I mean, I was not a founder, but imagine you had been a founder and you built that baby from scratch for years and years. You always had been your own boss. Now, all of a sudden you're a very small cogwheel inside a big corporate. You want to work in that environment? Probably not. You probably say
too big of a shift. Too big of a mindset shift for it. I suppose it's better to leave and build something new.
Exactly. You probably say thanks for it, but I'm off to new adventures. I mean, that's what. And there are other people who are more suited for this corporate structures. Yeah.
All right, guys. We are approaching the deadline, so it's also it's a Wednesday. It's the evening. We probably have. Mario also has some stuff to do. So, guys, for all of those who stayed with us till the very end, I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely did. Check out the playbook via the call to action. Oh, sorry.
Could PO and PM. Oh my God! Then I don't know whether we will manage that.
Mario, do you want to challenge it?
Do I have 3 minutes? So first of all,
of course.
Formally speaking, PO is part of Scrum, and on the model, PM is more a title. That would what the books tell you. I see it slightly different. So I have worked in organizations, particularly Marty Kagan would tell you go to hell if you have POs and PMs. I see that slightly different. So to me, right now, I'm working in an environment where the PMs, because Hygraph is essentially a content management system, headless CMS, and a very good one aimed at developers. My product managers are very technical. I don't need any PO. So basically, product managers directly work with the team, and they can break down the tickets and all of that. So no need for a PO, and I would not even question that. At Quentic, it was totally different. Yeah, it's commonly mixed, but it's not. I mean, it's a different, if you mix it, I don't know. I mean, it depends on the company. Again, PO is a role in Scrum. PM is a title in terms of what more like, Marty Kagan would define it. I sometimes see the value of having both, particularly when I look at environments like we had at Quentic, when it's a very complex domain. We had that when we were just discussing PLG. If I'm the product manager for chemical management, I need to read thousands of pages to even understand the business and the needs and the business requirements. Then I don't have time to talk to the team about Jira tickets and stories and breaking it down. So basically, I need a PO as a kind of translating that into technical packages. So I saw the value for both, depending on the need, either have POs and PMs, or of course, it's better if you only have PMs and you don't have separate POs. But again, not always possible. It's just beyond capacity in an environment like Quentic, for example.
Great. Alex, I hope this answers your question. We've still got one question incoming, yeah? Or because I see there's someone typing.
Someone's typing, yeah.
No, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Alex, you are most welcome. So guys, we had 80 minutes packed with knowledge, and thank you for that, Mario.
Pleasure.
Now, yeah, I think it's okay if I think I need to mention that, guys, on the 14th of May, remember to visit us on Startup Harbour in another live event. It will be 12 hours of education this time. A full day of education. So yeah, everybody's welcome, as you well know. For today, once again, Mario, it was a big pleasure. Extremely valuable conversation. Extremely knowledgeable person you are, that is sure. But I love the way how you explain it. So Mario, again, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.